Hi, everyone, and welcome to March's edition of Talking Talent Live. My name is Scott McHarg. I head up the exec search function at NRG, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Alex Hope, who we're going to be hearing more from in a second. We're going to be exploring issues around responsible management and sustainability and ESG, economic, social, and governance issues. It's an area that's becoming increasingly important for us as a business, both in terms of our clients and potential candidates that specialize in that area. And we thought it'd be really useful for all of our network to explore some of those issues in more detail. So we thought we'd do that with an expert. Hence, we've got Dr. Alex to join us today. And I suppose without any further ado, actually I should add, just from an admin point of view, if you've got any chat or comments or questions that you'd like to raise during the session, then just use the chat function that you'll see on screen. So Alex, welcome. Good to see you again.
Yes, Scott.
Yeah, so we thought it'd be useful just initially just to explore a little bit about your career journey. It's not an interview, but really just to explore how you find yourself in education, and particularly specializing in this area. Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, thank you for the invite. It's lovely to be here to talk about all of this. So my background, a bit of a very strange career journey, if you like. My original kind of career was in the music industry. Had a bit of a misspent youth, and spent a lot of time playing in bands around the world, and and really didn't start my career till quite late. Ended up in Newcastle in my early 20s to study music production here at one of the colleges, which set me up really nicely for a career in music retail. So I ended up managing HMV superstores for about 7 or 8 years, until I got to the point where I thought, this isn't really kind of what I want to do with the rest of my life. I had two loves always. One was music, the other was kind of the environment, nature, being outdoors, that kind of thing. So I thought, well, can I take the skills I've learned in retail management and leadership and translate that into environmental management and leadership? So I ended up at Northumbria University as a mature student, did an undergraduate degree at the age, started when I was 30, and liked the environment there, liked being around education, did a PhD in sustainable development, bit of a spell in local government, then ended up working at the university. Ended up in the business school about 15 years ago, where they asked me can I come and can I embed sustainability, ethics, responsibility, all of the kind of stuff that I kind of had been learning about into the business school education. That led me to working with the United Nations. So I'm on the board of a United Nations Global Compact initiative called the Responsible Management, Principles of Responsible Management Education. Had my own consultancy called One Planet Management, where I started working with businesses. So I managed to bring kind of the business work I was doing, the consultancy, with the academic work I was doing, with the kind of governance and policy work I was doing with the UN together, to help kind of basically advance the story of ESG and sustainability through business.
Yeah, I mean, you clearly wear quite a few hats there, Alex. How do you balance everything? What's your main focus at the moment?
A bit of everything. My belief is that education is transformational. It transforms the world that we live in. It gives people opportunities, and it's the way that we can make real change in the world. So I'm always very committed to education. But the way we do education at Northumbria is we do research-rich, research kind of informed education. So taking the kind of cutting edge kind of research, the cutting edge work that we do ourselves, and then bringing that into our education so we can give a real world experience to people that we work with. The consultancy work keeps me close to business, so I can understand what's happening on the ground, if you like. And so and the way those kind of work in a triumvirate, if you like, is the consultancy informs the research, which informs the teaching. And for me, that's the way that you actually make an impact and a difference. And I think I also try to infiltrate myself in various different ways. So various boards that I'm involved with, the global initiatives that I'm involved with, because I think as an academic, you need to have that rounded view of the world and to be able to kind of act as almost like a conduit to bring all of that together.
Yeah, just during the course of our work, I know how well you are connected, and I know that's on the industry and business side, as well as the academic side, and some of that, those growth initiatives that we're looking at the moment across the region. I know that you're involved in quite a few projects as we speak. So I suppose moving on to ESG in principle. It's becoming increasingly important as a business priority. What do you think is driving that shift, and essentially why should business leaders be paying attention?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think this has changed over time, over history. But I think right now we're kind of right in this kind of convergence of regulatory, financial, and social pressures that are all acting, societal pressures that are all acting on businesses. So I think if you think about compliance and regulation, those of us who work in the EU or work within the EU or export to the EU, we're all going to be, or we are now, beholden by the European Commission's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the CSRD. So if you're a business of kind of upper SME onwards, then you then have to start reporting on everything that you're doing from a sustainability point of view. If we look across to the US, it's very similar. They have their Securities and Exchange Commission enhancement and standardization of climate disclosure, I think it's called, for investors, regulations that are in. This is really kind of raising the bar, and it's really making organizations have to become more transparent about the work that they do around ESG. And they're kind of moving what was, I guess, when I first started, a more of a voluntary thing, more of a kind of, this is a nice thing to do, much more into a kind of regulatory regime where you have to do it. But I think if you couple that with investment, especially post financial crisis, much more kind of scrutiny on where companies are investing, where investors are putting their money. If you think about Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, probably the largest investment firm in the world, not known for his kind of environmentalism, shall we say, but what he talks about is that climate risk is simply investment risk. If you're working with an organization that isn't prepared to deal with some of the kind of challenges that we all have to in the future, that is a key risk to your portfolio.
Yeah.
Then I think if we close off with a societal kind of thing, so I guess employees, stakeholders, the public themselves, the view is changing. So there's lots of research out there. There's lots of research done by people like the Pew Research Center, which really talk about how consumers really want to engage with ethical, environmentally conscious brands. And every year, Deloitte does a really interesting millennial and Gen Z survey. And again, that talks about the workforce. And increasingly, again, younger people who are going into the world of work, they want to work for a company that's doing these things well, a purpose-driven company, a company that really kind of looks after these things. To put them all together.
I think a key element, Alex, sorry to cut across you there, a key element is that compliance over benefits, and getting business leaders, business owners to recognize the benefit from having an ESG strategy. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, and I think it did used to be a bit of a box ticking. Okay, we have to meet the regulations. But I think the companies that have done it well and have built this into their DNA, I'm thinking about Marks and Spencer's or IKEA, or there's lots of small SMEs as well that are starting to come up with benefit corporations. They're actually understanding that if they build this into their core business, their core DNA, they tick all of the boxes on compliance and on investors, but at the same time, they start to kind of have that bit of a commercial edge. What makes them a little bit different than the other companies that they're competing with. And so it's becoming now not really kind of a tick box and exercise, but really people are understanding it drives innovation, it builds resilience, it builds brand equity far more than compliance ever did before.
Yeah. Actually, looking more closely at not just sustainability, but the role of leaders within business. You obviously work with business leaders and you work with educators as well. What qualities do you think define a responsible and a sustainable leader in today's corporate world?
I think you've got to have that long-term vision. Okay, and there were obviously short-term pressures on everybody, especially if you're a shareholder focused organization. But it's having that longer-term view, really being able to look out and backcast into what's actually need to do now. I think systems thinking, be able to think about how the society builds in with the environment and with financial outcomes, that triple bottom line as we call it, being able to do all of that together is really important. And I think having some authentic value yourself, understand it. I think gone are the days where people might come to work and they'd have one set of values, they go home and have another. I think being your authentic self, understanding that the way that you are perceived at work, the decisions you make influence your family life, your home life, and influence the environment in which you're with, the community in which you live. So I think those kind of good sustainable leaders are having that kind of, again, that triumvirate almost, the ability to see long term, to think in systems and realize that what they're doing is changing the world, whether that would be for better or for worse, and affecting the environment that they're working in.
So what tangible steps do you think leaders can take to really embed those I suppose that mindset within their company culture?
And this is a common question, and I think it is true that ESG, like a lot of things, always led from the top. You've got to lead from the top. You've got to be seen to buy it yourself. But I think if you're an executive, if you're a senior executive, a CEO, and you're looking to do that, you've got to make sure that your C-suite is all on board. One way lots of companies do that really well now, Greg's do it really well, is they actually embed ESG targets in people's remuneration policy packages, in their KPIs. It's just, it's part of what they do alongside all of the other kind of maybe more financial kind of KPIs and that they have. And I think that starts to change people's thinking that, oh, this is just normal. This is just business as normal, business as usual. And those tools then start to kind of embed and work down. But I think governance is really important as well. I think, consistent reporting on things like the gender pay that you do, any pro bono work, environmental initiatives, giving employees days to go and do voluntary work, in communities. I think that starts to build the culture. So it's got to be a bit of top down, but it's also got to be a bit of bottom up, letting your employees kind of work what they are interested in to do.
Yeah, we've had rightly so a lot of focus on D&I issues over the years, and really D&I falls within the social side of ESG. And having that as part of an overarching value set, I think comes back to what you were saying about it's how you think and how you walk and talk and how you behave. So that sort of cultural aspect, you can see huge benefits coming from having an effective strategy around that. But thinking about that, both in terms of the day-to-day actions, but also, I suppose, writing business strategy for the future that will encompass aspects of P&L and profit performance, but also that are aligned with overall compliance issues. How do you marry the two of those?
So what so the strategy and
so I suppose it's the day-to-day culture which allows you to be an organization that operates with integrity, and we'll see some of those real-time benefits in terms of cost. I suppose the next challenge is to be able to write that almost commercial strategy in the marketplace that aligns with compliance. That I can see that being a real challenge.
Yeah, I think for me, look, I'm a big fan of the SDGs as a framework, Sustainable Development Goals as a framework. There are critiques about that, but essentially what the SDGs are, I heard them talked about yesterday as the tick box for the world. The to-do list for the world. How do we make society better? How do we tackle climate change, poverty, health, well-being, hunger, all of these kind of things? And as they are, every government in the world is signed up to the SDGs, then every business, to some respect, has to have should have a strategy to deal with it. And that way as well is a good framework for aligning strategy with sustainability, and getting that purposeful alignment. So, just give you an example, like Nestle have a really good net zero roadmap, and they use SDGs 2 and 13, so good health and well-being and climate change to build their strategy for regenerative agriculture and the emissions that they have from that. So it's bringing those SDGs and using them as a kind of framework to basically map the things you're doing as an organization strategically against the ESG kind of goals that we all want to achieve.
Actually, I'm just thinking, Alex, there might be people on the call that don't know what SDGs are. So just from in terms of jargon busters, SDGs.
Yeah, the Sustainable Development Goals, and it is always a bit of a oh god moment when people don't realize what the SDGs are, because they're the global roadmap that we need to have. They follow the Millennium Development Goals that the United Nations set, wide coordination with every government that's in part of the UN, with businesses to develop this, like I said, a tick box, everything from solving poverty to hunger to climate change. And we're all supposed to have strategies to achieve this by 2030. Now, of course, we're not going to eradicate poverty completely by 2030, but the idea is that having a framework that helps us achieve that is important. And there will be another framework coming, building on the SDGs from 2030. And so lots of companies will use this as a way to say, okay, so what's government want from us? What does civil society want from us? How do we work against these SDGs to do that? So yeah, Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, thanks. And in terms of that regulation and compliance, whilst it's not here now, heavily in the UK for every business, what can businesses be doing to kind of get ahead of the game, or be preparing for that potential regulation?
Yeah, well, for me, that's core business. That's what businesses do. You kind of look to the future and you say, okay, what's coming down the line? How do I get my ship in good shape to be able to weather that? And it is evolving rapidly. There's some research we're just publishing at the moment. One of my past PhD students did, looking at this European corporate sustainability reporting directive with Irish multinational companies, and so many of them were not prepared for this to come and land on their desk to say, right, from now on, every year you've got to do mandatory sustainability reporting alongside your financial reporting. And this was being signaled for years. So I think you can go and you can see where the direction of travel is, and as a business, you can start to prepare for that. So I think you could do things like adopting the global frameworks that exist, whether that be the SDGs, the Global Reporting Initiative, which talks about how you should be writing your financial report, for example. If you start to get on board these things now, that is usually what becomes the regulation of the future. So those really good voluntary kind of initiatives become the regulations. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies, especially in the UK, are turning to benefit corp status, B Corps, which is, again, a voluntary initiative which takes a good look at your business under the hood, make sure every part of your business is aligned with kind of cutting edge sustainability kind of credentials, if you like. If you're a B Corp, then you're most likely to meet those future regulations as they come down the line. So you don't have to wait, you can get on, you can start now.
Yeah, you touched upon it there a little bit, but in terms of future generations of leaders, particularly those that are in education at the moment, do you think that that they're better placed to adopt some of these principles? You've also got the challenge of educating my generation.
Well, to a degree, because I think now business education in general, so whether you do that at undergraduate or if you do it alongside your work at postgraduate, there is now a focus of sustainability through most business schools. When I first started, like I said, in our business school, it was nascent. We were just starting to kind of do that. But over the last decade or so, this has massively grown. So the work that I do with the United Nations is essentially how it works with business schools, embedding sustainability into the work that they do. When I started in the UK, we had a UK chapter with about 20 or 30 business schools involved. Now we have 100. That's 100 out of 120, so we're nearly there across the board. Internationally, there are over 1,000 business schools in this kind of initiative. And the way that business schools are accredited by global accreditation bodies, again, they're all saying to us, we need to be doing this. So undergraduates and postgraduates are exposed to this on a day-to-day basis. And then the idea is then that they will then take that into the businesses they go to work with, because, they have the knowledge, but that's not enough, is it? It's that intergenerational collaboration. So the current executives that they may, or business people they go to work with, will have their experience of how to navigate the complexity of business world, if you like. But our graduates are there to bring that energy and the alignment to the values that they have, with a core understanding that business is a means to change the world for better or for worse, and how to thankfully do it for better. So I think, bringing younger people in with the knowledge and coupling them with executives with lots of experience is the ideal way to kind of get that cross-generational push that we need.
Yeah, and I think, from a recruitment perspective on our side, not just candidates at the younger end of things, but candidates will look to join organizations that do have the right sort of value set, increasingly so. So yeah, that's we can see that as being a definite direction of travel, and the benefits that can be gained from having an effective strategy. One of those challenges will always come back to the commercial question versus the investment in ESG. So just give it on that particularly, we might have touched on it before, but just what advice would you give to leaders that might be faced with increased profits or potentially increased costs from investing in an effective ESG strategy?
Yeah, I think still a lot of people think of sustainability as a cost. We have to do this thing, it's a cost. But it's not. I always kind of say to people, look, you need to reframe it. It's an investment. It's an investment in the long-term value of your business. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't have to happen overnight. And if you think about companies like Marks & Spencer's, they're always a great example because in the UK, obviously, they're a well-known brand. But when they started their Plan A strategy, because there is no Planet B, if you like, they put aside some money. They thought, okay, what we'll do is we'll insulate our chillers and our coolers and things like that. We'll put green walls on, and we'll do a little bit of work that will cost, a large capital cost, but that will start to kind of generate some stuff around ESG. What they found very quickly was the amount of money they saved in efficiencies and reduction of energy in brand commitment and brand loyalty. They actually made that money back very, very quickly and built up a bit of a war chest, which then recycled back into their ESG work. And now they'll do much more things on, they've done the kind of easy stuff, the environmental stuff, the efficiency. And now they've really kind of built their brand around sustainable procurement. And, you'll see in their stores, it's all ethical sourcing, et cetera, et cetera. So what they really did is they thought, okay, actually, what they thought was a cost became a strategy. And it's actually helped them as one of the retail organizations that weathered the storm over COVID a lot better than some of the others. And the research is out there. There's a really good McKinsey report that I always give to my MBA students, which talks about how companies with strong ESG performance always outperform their peers in the long term. But it's having that kind of courage to be able to have that long-term view, that long-term strategy, which is important.
Yeah, I can think of some client conversations I've had recently, and I'm talking about just in the Northeast here, where we've got innovation around sustainability is leading to reduced costs for their clients. And in one example, construction times reduced from looking at modular build, and just that sort of time to deliver, helps their client base. So yeah, I think part of it's education. Today's part of that, hopefully.
Well, I think one of the things I always like to say is that there was a big movement in the kind of 50s and 60s towards quality management. Trying to improve the quality of your manufacturing. Let's say if you're a manufacturing unit, so you didn't have as much waste. And again, at the time, that was viewed as a huge kind of investment in new machinery, tools, ways of working to try to improve the quality of everything came off that production line. But actually now total quality management is just business as usual, because it saves you so much money by not having that kind of waste, those wasted products that come out the back. I see sustainability as exactly the same. Okay, you invest in it, in now as a way to kind of, that regulatory risk, that brand investment, that efficiency. And so when people say, well, sustainability costs a lot of money, well, the guy who invented total quality management, Deming, he used to say that quality management is free. Well, I say the same. Sustainability management is free. Okay, it takes a bit of capital investment and it takes a long burn, but at the end of it, it'll just become business as usual. And as simple as that.
I'm conscious of time here, Alex. We've got a few more questions to look at, so I'll go into rapid fire mode. We touched upon it there. You mentioned Marks and Spencer's, but are there certain industries or certain sectors that are embracing this better than others? And what can they learn?
Yeah, I would say the tech sector at the moment, mostly because of the cost of tech, the use of minerals, the use of resources which are depleting, the amount of energy that it takes to build AI essentially. So people like Apple, Google, Microsoft, they're all committed to be carbon neutral, and Apple are in lots of their operations. But again, a lot of them are doing that because it's just good business to do so. If you're Apple, let's say, and you own your power generation in the solar farms they have in the US and et cetera, it just kind of it helps insure you from the kind of volatile energy prices that we have. And again, the same with Google and Microsoft. There's a big race at the moment to make the most efficient AI. So because people are worried about the carbon impact of that. And so again, it's a commercial edge if you have the most carbon efficient AI. Simple as that.
Yeah. Okay, here's one for you, Alex. What is the biggest ESG challenge do you think businesses are going to face in the next 5 years?
Oof. I think it is regulations, regulatory enforcement, especially around things like greenwashing at the moment. There's a lot of stuff. This is why the corporate reporting directives come in from the EU. Yeah. I think that's a big risk. I would have three actually. I say the other one is climate, climate-related supply chain disruption. So not being able to get the goods and services around because of changing weather patterns. And I think the final one would be that there is a talent gap. I'm saying that business schools are doing a lot of these kind of things, but there still is a shortage of people that really understand ESG and are really able to take that into businesses. So I think, so I would say greenwashing, climate, risk, and talent gap, yeah.
Okay, we'll let you have three because we know you and we like you. Here's one for you. What one piece of advice that you'd give to business leaders that might be, I suppose, watching today, but might not know where to start?
Just start. Start small. Start with intent. Even if it's just do a quick audit, your carbon audit, let's say, of what's going on in your supply chain. Look at your procurement policies. Speak to your staff and just say, hey, is this something that you're interested in? Should we be pushing on this? Is this something that you get bought into? I think just baby steps to a degree. Just start, build up that kind of head of steam and move. But I think most people just sometimes get so overwhelmed they don't even start. So just go for it. Yeah,
and you will be available.
Absolutely,
within the region, and if we've got any national clients as well, just given your specialism in it. So certainly we'll pass on your contact details at the end of the session. And if people want to learn more or take action themselves, are there any particular resources that you would, or networks that you would point them towards?
Yeah, look, I would say that nearly every network that people are already involved in probably has some focus in ESG. So if you work with, I don't know, the CBI, the Chamber of Business Industry, or Federation of Small Businesses, people like that, they will have, and they do have, an interest in ESG. They'll have some things you can go to. You can talk to business in the community. Full disclosure, I sit on the Northeast board of that organization, but they've been around for 40 years, pioneering responsible business. Just loads of free resources. And the good thing about the networks is you can connect you up with other people. So everybody's on the same journey. If you're thinking, like in the question you asked before about where do I start, go and speak to someone else, it's one of your peers, one of your competitors even, and just use those networks. There are plenty out there.
Fantastic. Alex, can I say thank you for your insight and your time today, apart from anything else, because I know you're really busy. And thanks to everyone who's joined the call today. It will be available offline if you didn't get a chance to join live, so to speak. We will circulate Alex's contact details. I remain really passionately interested in this subject, and if anybody wants to explore it in more detail, then by all means contact me as well. But thanks very much, Alex, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the next edition of our Talking Talents live session in April. Enjoy your day.